Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I am going to be doing a review for you. So the book that I'm going to be reviewing today is Life as We Knew It by Susan Beth Pfeffer. Now I know this is in no way a new book. In fact, this book came out in 2006, so it's actually about 10 years old now, but I just barely read it for TBR Takedown, and I had a lot of thoughts that I wanted to voice about it, so I thought, why not to do a review on this book? Life as We Knew It follows our lead character Miranda's diary when a meteor strikes the moon and knocks it closer to Earth. Disasters like earthquakes and tsunamis and volcanoes destroy the planet slowly, all of which force Miranda, her mother, and her two brothers into one room of their home as they struggle to survive in such horrific conditions. First up, I just want to say that this book was heart-pounding. It grabbed my attention right from the beginning and hooked me, and I could not look away. There's actually a review on the back of this book that says it was kind of like a car crash I couldn't stop looking at, and I really agree with that review. Not in that this book was bad, but I couldn't imagine a way in which the book could get worse, and I knew that if it did, I wouldn't be able to handle it. And then it would get worse again. And this continual emotional devastation made it very difficult to look away from the book, but also made it just so stressful to read. What felt so raw about this book almost was the realness of it. I have read plenty of books about the end of the world, but there was something that was just so much more visceral about the emotions and the experience in this book. It felt almost like I was getting tricked into falling too deep into the emotions of this book, and I did have a really hard time being far too emotionally invested in this book to the point that it almost was a detriment to how much I enjoyed it. I will get back to that later. But the other thing that I want to talk about is that the characters of this book were definitely its strength. The characters grew in such a way throughout the novel that it had this way of feeling both truthful and devastating at the same time. I hated what was happening to each character and how they changed over the course of the book, but it made such sense that I couldn't fault it for being false emotion or making it devastating for no reason. There was something about the way the characters developed that felt so real and honest, and that is really what made this version of the end of the world so much more frightening, is that it was about a family dealing with the end of the world and how that changes that family. It brought it to a different level of realness to me. The plot of this book moved forward at such an excellent pace, and the fact that it was a diary really allowed you to never be comfortable, because if there were days where just nothing happened, then Miranda wasn't going to write about those days. So it could go from things being pretty good to pretty terrible within a page, and that made it really, really engrossing to read, and it made it very addictive to read because you just didn't know how it was going to go next, and also it left me with this forever fear that it was going to just end without an ending, and that really scared me because with a diary, I mean, she has to be able to write it, so there was constantly this fear that I had that how is this book going to end? Is it just going to end? And that was very scary, but it definitely motivates you to read more and more and more. And the way that her diary develops is so interesting, and it felt just so honest. So as I said, my only problem with this book was really how I responded to it, and it was no way a comment on this book being bad in any way, because I think it's actually a strength. That I really often found myself too immersed in the book to a degree that I just wasn't enjoying. I would be eating a snack during this book, and then I would find myself feeling bad because the characters in the book were starving. And someone else commented in a recent video where I talked about this book that they would feel really disoriented when they looked up and they were on a bus driving, or that they'd have to flip on the lights a couple times just to reassure themselves that it was there. And that was definitely what I felt. It was just something so real and immersive about the book that I grew too emotionally attached to this book while I was reading it, and it actually caused me a lot of stress, and I just couldn't really deal with it very well, which doesn't really happen to me. I always love getting attached to characters, and I cry a lot during books, but I do not usually get this attached to a story that it is really staying with me even when I put the book down. And that is definitely a comment on a strength of this book, because while that didn't work for me as well, I can see how impressive the writing is that it was able to connect me that deeply to this story. So I definitely think that it is a very good one to pick up, and one that I would really recommend if you want an emotionally investing story, and one that feels very real while being about an intense subject. This read almost like, it read like a YA contemporary almost, as opposed to an end of the world novel, because everything just felt so real about it, and that was really a strength and really something that I enjoyed about the novel, despite the fact that I just don't ever see myself being able to read this again, and I definitely don't see myself being able to read the sequels to the book, unfortunately. But overall, this was a very good book. It had really strong writing, really excellent characters, and I did end up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I would highly, highly recommend it to people, because I think that while I couldn't quite enjoy that intense emotional aspect of it, it is definitely a strength of this book, and one that I would pass on to many people who enjoy a lot of different genres, because I think this touches on a lot of different genres that make it work really well. So yes, I would definitely recommend this book because I did really enjoy it. There you go, that is my review of Life as We Knew It. I hope that if you were planning on reading this book, maybe I have encouraged you to pick it up. This book has been on my TBR for about 5-6 years now, and people just kept encouraging me to read it, and I didn't. And now I see what they were all talking about. It was definitely well written and definitely worth the hype, and I hope that you decide to pick it up as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!